All right, great. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vijay Kapoor. I have the honor of serving as the receiver for the city of Chester. Today is October 14th, 2025, and we are joined here for the Municipal Financial Recovery Advisory Committee meeting, or MFRAC. I am delighted to be joined by the Honorable Mayor Stefan Roots, by the Honorable Councilman Shaquan Davis, by Ms. Kelly Diaz from Delaware County, by Mr. Andrew Sheaf from DCED, by Jacob Holikove, my special assistant, and by Cody Deal, my executive assistant. So good afternoon, everybody. Great. Just as we start off, I wanted to let everybody know, let me kick it over to Mr. Deal. Mr. Deal, have you circulated any and all public comment that we've received to the committee?
Thank you, Mr. Receiver. Yes, we did receive one public comment, so we'd like to thank the sender for that. It was circulated to the committee before today's meeting, and as always, would just like to continue to encourage the public to reach out to the committee. The best way to do so is through our resource account email address, which is info@chesterreceivership.com. Again, that's info@chesterreceivership.com.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Deal. Appreciate that. I do have a presentation today. We will talk a little bit about the rate increase that was announced last week by the Chester Water Authority and some of the information that the Water Authority put out, especially as it related to the city of Chester. But before doing so, did want to provide and allow the committee to make any comments that it had itself or any announcements that you all would like to make, before we get into it. Does anyone on the committee have any announcements, anything they would like to update? I may prompt one or two of you on something if you don't raise it. But anyone at this point have any comments or announcements? Let me ask this, Mayor or Councilman Davis, can either of you talk about the exciting groundbreaking that happened last Friday in the city of Chester?
I'll let the mayor handle that.
Oh, well, thanks.
You're welcome.
Exciting groundbreaking. We're actually building something here in the city of Chester. The city of Chester we had a groundbreaking for our nearly $10 million new public work garage, which will be located right on Route 291 near Lloyd Street. It's really exciting to be moving into a new space, the space that our public works department and its equipment was located before was on Dock Street, a street which no people, I don't think anybody even lives on Dock Street in Chester, Pennsylvania. It's a street that's not too well familiar, and it's a building that has long outlived its useful life. So thanks to the American Rescue Plan dollars and a few other dollars, we didn't have to tap into taxpayers at all to move forward with this. It was really an exciting groundbreaking. It was well orchestrated by the people who put it together. Council was there, Public Works Department was there, and they showed out. They look great, and this is really for them. This is really for them. They've been working in a place that they shouldn't have had the opportunity to work in at all. I don't even think I should call it an opportunity. It was just a disgusting place. So for us to make that upgrade was a proud moment for those of us in city government, for those of us who saw the announcement. It's a place I love, and the statement will last for generations. It's built to last, and it's even going to improve the look down on 291 from an empty lot that is filled with trucks and cars to a really functional building. There's another new building coming up just a few blocks down from it. So it's showing signs of progress and growth here in the city of Chester. Excited. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. And I was sorry that I wasn't able to attend it, but the groundbreaking was, like as the mayor said, last Friday. I think it was live streamed. I think it's on the city's Facebook page if folks would like to go and take a look at it. A lot of hard work went into that behind the scenes. For many of you who don't know this, the procurement process is not an easy one in the Commonwealth, and we certainly really appreciated the work of Greg Schaefer, of Ken Schuster, of Tom Moore, of a lot of people here in the city who helped put all that together. It is amazing how much effort it takes and how much process it takes before you can literally even get a shovel into the ground. So, many thanks to everybody, many thanks to council who supported it, and now becomes the harder part too of building the building. So, folks can kind of see that coming up. But thank you, Mayor, and grateful for everybody's help on all that. So with that, let me go ahead and share my screen here. And go through with everybody the presentation that I'd like to do today. So can everybody see that on your screen? Great. So there's two things that we'd like to do today as part of this presentation, and they are both related to really the monetization and kind of specifically to the Chester Water Authority. So first, we wanted to talk about CWA's 14% rate hike that they announced last Friday via email, and then also sent a letter out to all ratepayers. The second thing that we want to talk about is revision to language in the monetization RFP, and want to explain what was done and why it was done. So let's start with the 14% rate increase. Anyone who works in PR, anyone who kind of like follows politics knows that when you have bad news, you dump it on a Friday afternoon, and that is what CWA did. There was a quote emergency, an email talking about an emergency 14% rate increase that would be effective January 1st of 2026. And we want to talk a little bit about some of the reasons that CWA gave for that increase. But we want to kind of start very, very, very just very basic with that. The public had no say on this rate increase. There weren't any public hearings. There wasn't a debate, and we can talk about some of the questionable transparency about something that really impacts everybody. It impacts Chester residents. It impacts ratepayers across the region. As some of you may know who might be following this, for other utilities, so for example, for private utilities, before they have to raise rates, they have to go before the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission, and they have to publicly justify why they are asking for the rates and why they are asking for the amounts that they need to that they're asking for. CWA, as a municipal entity, does not need to do that. They do not need to go in front of the PUC. And this is one of the things that again kind of allows them to raise rates without providing the public justification for why. One of the things though that I really kind of want to start with, right, and I think many folks who are in Chester and who are following this, noticed, and I certainly did. One thing really wasn't a surprise, and that was that the Water Authority, the majority of the board is appointed by representatives of suburban Chester and Delaware counties, blamed both the city of Chester and the receiver for trying to reach a deal to get fair value for its stake in the water system. Specifically, what CWA said was that the receivers and the city's efforts to monetize the water system led Moody's to downgrade its rating on CWA's debt. So Moody's is a rating agency. It's one of three rating agencies. They will rate the debt that municipal entities have. And moreover, CWA said that the higher rates and the uncertainty about its future meant that several lenders refused to refinance CWA's debt. They said that they had to turn to a specialty lender at double the normal rate. They also said CWA had $1.7 million in unpaid bills from the closed Crozier Chester Medical Center, from the hospital, and from the city of Chester. Now, I want to start with this. There may actually be legitimate reasons for the rate increase. But I want to start with the language. I want to start with the tone of CWA's communications because it fits a pattern, and it's fit a pattern that has been going back for years. And that's a pattern that stigmatizes Chester and it disrespects its residents. And I think it's important. We've called it out before, but I think it's also important to call it out now. We've seen time and time again CWA disparaging Chester, the city of Chester, its residents, and its financial troubles with frankly lies and innuendo. And I want to call your attention to a specific line that was in CWA's letter to ratepayers. So this came, as any of you were ratepayers, you probably got this. This sentence was sent and was put in a letter that was paid with ratepayer dollars. And the sentence said this. It said over 80% of CWA's customers live outside the city of Chester, but all ratepayers are and will continue to be affected by the city's actions, which are aimed at resolving the city's longstanding problems at, and this is the word, your ongoing expense. I mean, that sentence here is clearly trying to set up a an opposition between the city of Chester and everybody else. I mean, just the term "your ongoing expense," and I've talked with some of the staff of state representatives who've gotten some phone calls, right? And they have gotten calls, and those calls tend to have concerns and tend to make statements that are very derogatory about the city of Chester. I will read one. Mr. Deal said that we got one today. Let me read this without actually saying who this person is. It's someone who wasn't from the city of Chester. But they stated, "Why in the world are you so persistent in selling CWA to Aqua? You want to talk about a rate increase. It will triple and be every month. I have friends in Aqua." This yet again to bail out the corrupt city of Chester. Stop. Um, I think many of us certainly have positions on what to do with the water authority, on monetization, on what to do. But there's certain sentences and there's certain strategies that I firmly believe just cross the line. And I think a sentence like this does that. This was written intentionally. This was sent to ratepayers all over the region. And ratepayer dollars were used, both probably in the writing of this letter and certainly in the sending of this letter. We've asked CWA to stop doing this type of language, this type of inflammatory and disrespectful language, and we're going to ask them to stop again because it is absolutely over the line and it is absolutely disrespectful to the residents of Chester. So let's talk about what our response was as the receiver, and then let's actually talk about what was in the letter as well. So to that end, we sent a letter last Tuesday to the CWA board chair, Noel Brandon, with a series of questions and a request that public hearings be held before the rates became effective. So we had a lot of questions, and these questions were prompted by what was in the letter. And those questions were, who were the financial institutions that declined to provide financing? What actual efforts did CWA make to obtain such financing? And what is the documentary evidence for why those institutions refused to participate? Again, maybe they did, but it would be helpful to know what that is. Who was the specialty lender who offered the refinancing and what were the rates and terms? How much did the city of Chester owe in unpaid water bills, and why didn't CWA file a proof of claim against the city for those amounts? So a proof of claim in bankruptcy is when you say that the debtor, in this case, the city, owes you money, and you file a proof of claim to say, okay, this is how much it is. If you don't file a proof of claim, you waive your claim. And the Chester Water Authority did not file a proof of claim against the city of Chester. Other questions of how much is CWA spending on its extensive marketing and billboard campaigns to fight monetization? How much is CWA spending on legal representation? Why has CWA acted in such an inappropriate way that the bankruptcy court is currently considering sanctions against it and its law firms? And I think importantly, did CWA keep its rates artificially low in previous years and is now needing to significantly raise them? So to CWA's response, today marks 7 days since these questions were sent to Chairman Brandon. And I will say 5 minutes before we began this MFRAC, I did receive a response from Chairman Brandon. I haven't had a chance to look at it in great detail, but I will tell you, it did not answer any of the questions that we asked. And in fact, it responded in a way that I don't think is particularly productive and is sort of a continuation of what we saw in the letter that was sent to the public. I'm sure CWA will post that letter. So I want to talk a little bit about the Moody's downgrade. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the reason for why CWA is saying that it got downgraded. And this document right here that we have on slide 10 is a snippet from the Moody's rating. And you know, in the letter, CWA argued that it was the receiver and the city's actions that led to the downgrade. But as we'll see, CWA actually omitted two really important points. In fact, if you read this, and again, we'll go through this, but it says the downgrade is driven by two broad factors. First is the decline in debt service coverage and liquidity caused by a contraction in usage by a major wholesale customer. It will require several years of rate increases for the authority to build its cash position to a level more comparable with peers. And then it says later, the CWA's debt service coverage and liquidity, days cash on hand, are weak compared to most highly rated peers, particularly after a difficult year in 2023, following the contraction of a major wholesale customer. But the authority has begun raising rates more aggressively and is likely to improve going forward. So in looking at the letter, and again, some of you may actually have this letter, some of you may be looking at it now. CWA said that in its letter that Moody's downgraded CWA's strong investment grade rating of AA2 because of uncertainty regarding the bankruptcy. But again, as we saw right here, CWA omitted a very key part of the reasons for the downgrade. And again, Moody's acknowledged the issues around bankruptcy. We acknowledge that, but put the blame primarily on the decline in debt service coverage and liquidity caused by a contraction in usage by a major wholesale customer, and said it will require several years of rate increases for the authority to build its cash position to a level more comparable with peers. So interestingly, we went back and looked, and let me say one more thing on the downgrade, and then I'll note who that major wholesale customer was and what the impact was. But the same report also said, quote, CWA's debt service coverage and liquidity are weak compared to most highly rated peers, particularly after a difficult year in 2023 following the contraction of a major wholesale customer. But the authority has begun, again, raising rates more aggressively and is likely to improve going forward. So we went back and looked at CWA's audits, and the customer that CWA actually lost was Aqua, believe it or not. CWA was selling water to Aqua as a wholesale customer, which is not unusual. And back in those days, from 2021 to 2022, their revenues from wholesale sales went down from around 6.98 million to 4.379 million. They went down by around $2.6 million. All of that happened before bankruptcy was filed. All of that happened previous to this. That had nothing to do with the receiver. And some of the key points to note is that if an entity has low liquidity, it means its revenues are too low or its expenses are too high. The Moody's report suggests that CWA's liquidity issues predate the receiver's plan of adjustment regarding monetization, which wasn't filed until August of 2024. So, you know, as part of this, you can see here that CWA is using the Moody's downgrade as a reason for why it had to raise its rates. And it's blaming the city for that, but it's omitting a very key part, which again has to do with its finances. The other area that we think is really important to look at, and we've been talking about this because we think it's important from a transparency perspective, is for months, even as the bankruptcy court continues to weigh sanctions against CWA and its law firms, CWA has filed motion after motion and has actually expanded its legal team with high-priced, out-of-town attorneys. They have hired a boutique First Amendment firm out of DC to litigate this. And that firm filed its most recent motion, which again was rejected by the bankruptcy court last week, which is basically fit a pattern of feudal filings here. of filings that have been denied over and over and over again. I say this because it's a concern of ours. Lawyers are not cheap. We know that. And part of the problem we see here is that the public doesn't know how much CWA is paying in legal fees for a simple reason. CWA won't say it. They were asked in a newspaper article months ago where our legal fees were discussed, and CWA didn't answer the question. And as I'm looking through Chairman Brandon's letter back to me, he doesn't answer the question here either. It's a very simple question. CWA is a public authority. We're not asking for legal strategy. We're not asking, and I think ratepayers aren't asking for anything like that, anything that's attorney-client privileged. We're asking for how much you're spending on this. And that's public information. CWA is a public authority. And the fact that they're refusing to provide this is a concern, especially when they are talking about doing a 14% rate. And again, we can conclude that these motions, these legal expenses, are contributing to the rate increase. And again, I mean, I will say this for those of you who are following the bankruptcy, for those of you who are looking at this, these motions are being consistently denied over and over again. The appeals are being denied. Again, CWA's got every right to take whatever legal action it wants to take, but this is the net result, and it requires us to spend taxpayer dollars as well, having to respond to them. It's frankly, I don't think in the public's best interest, and the least of which we should know how much this is actually costing, especially if it's going to be impacting water rates. So what we're seeking is transparency. I certainly recognize the need to gradually increase rates as part of just the normal course of business for a municipality or an authority. Prices go up over time. We understand that. We certainly understand that. But a 14% increase and the threat of future rate hikes, especially that's been blamed on the city of Chester, needs greater transparency. So I would submit to you that CWA has an obligation to ratepayers to clearly and to publicly justify the need for such an increase rather than just lobbing accusations and disrespecting the residents of Chester. So what we've asked CWA, and we think this is in everybody's best interest, from our end to protect ratepayers and also to preserve the value of CWA as an asset, we are requesting an independent audit into CWA's finances and a review of CWA's management, operation, and legal expenses. We're not looking for anything that's attorney-client privileged. We're not looking for anything confidential. But CWA has been refusing to actually be clear and be open about what they're spending and what their financial condition is. We are also calling for CWA to publicly provide the same information that a private utility would be required to disclose in a rate case before the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission. Again, as I said earlier, CWA isn't required to do this. A private utility would be, but this process is where an authority would actually have to show the financial justification for why they need to raise rates and to also show why they needed to raise rates for the amount they needed to do, whether it's capital projects and what their revenues are, what their expenses are. And again, they're not legally required to do this. But this is something, again, if all of us want to be clear and transparent about our financial condition, this is something that I think the CWA would probably even want to do, is to provide that information to the public. Again, it's a public authority. It's subject to the right to know laws, just like all of us are. And I think that's a key thing, especially when you're talking about doing a 14% rate increase, and especially when you're talking about it in the manner that you have. Right. Unless, of course, like there's other reasons for the 14% rate increase, and you're using the city of Chester as a scapegoat for why you needed to raise those rates as high as you did. Having public hearings, which again is what we're calling for, is necessary from our end to discover what the truth is, and also to give ratepayers a proper say. So to sum up the first part of this conversation and presentation, we will say CWA did get one thing right. The city of Chester is in bankruptcy. But the reasons for why it's in bankruptcy, they're deep and they're systemic. Two reasons particularly stand out. One is, as many of you know, industry has left the city, which decimated our tax base here in Chester. And we also have to contend with unaffordable pensions and retiree healthcare benefits. As many of you also know from following here on MFRAG, the CWA was taken from Chester without any compensation. And the residents of Chester had little to do with any of the above, anything of what we just discussed here. But they're paying the price today. And from our end, like, we think it's important for CWA's actions to be called out. Talked about that earlier, talked about the inappropriate language that's being directed toward the residents of Chester, the disrespectful language that is directed toward the residents of Chester, and the scapegoating of city residents and the city itself. That needs to stop. It absolutely needs to stop. Based on the letter I got from Chairman Brandon, it's clearly not stopping. But it's, to my end, completely and totally inappropriate. And the focus really should be on the finances and trying to find a solution going forward. So that is the first part of the presentation. Let me just pause here and see if there's any questions that the or any comments that the committee may have. Okay, none. Mayor?
Yeah, I'll just make one comment. Your ongoing expenses, it is, very targeted to all municipalities, all customers outside of the city of Chester. I mean, that's a given. It's as if this propaganda campaign is being targeted to everyone except Chester, which we don't appreciate here in Chester, evidenced by the fact that you barely see a Save CWA sign here in the city of Chester. They're all, over the border. I'll be glad when we get to the end of this, but I wish it was just a legal or a conversation or a financial situation that we're in, and not a targeted campaign as it seems to be here. Your ongoing expenses, I mean, it's almost as if to say the ratepayers in Chester who are paying the same bill that other customers are not affected as well, and that's not nice.
Appreciate that, Mayor. Any other questions about the first part of this? Again, we'll take a closer look at Chairman Brandon's letter as well. Again, I will assume CWA will probably post it as well. But as far as I can tell, just from reviewing it pretty quickly, it's more of the same. So let me talk a little bit about the second part of our presentation, which I think is also which is important, and we want to be clear with residents. We want to be clear with ratepayers and everybody else who has an interest in this. We have been very clear. I have been very clear. My prior receiver, Michael Dowry, has been very clear that on 2 points. One is that Chester residents deserve a fair and equitable deal to monetize the city's interests in the Water Authority, Delcora, and the Stormwater Authority of Chester. Second thing we've been very clear about is any plan to monetize these assets must keep these assets publicly owned. And I want to be clear, this has not changed. We have been clear from the start, we have been consistent, and we continue to be consistent. We are unwavering in our commitment to keep these assets under the control of an entity that is answerable to the public and not to stockholders. So let's talk a little bit about what's been happening and what happened recently in court. So we recently resolved a legal dispute that resulted in a revision to the language of the monetization RFP that could be taken out of context. So earlier this year, as many of you know, the committee representing Chester retirees sued me and sued Michael Dowry, demanding that we consider bids to privatize the water assets. And from the committee's perspective, they want the city to consider bids that they believe will result in the highest amount possible in exchange for the water assets, even if that means privatization. We fundamentally disagree with the retirees as in terms of that being an outcome. But in order to resolve this litigation that could have potentially gone on for many months, cost a lot of money at the expense of the taxpayers, we've agreed on language to insert into the RFP. And that language to be inserted, to be added, is that, quote, for the avoidance of doubt, notwithstanding subparagraph 3 above, bids that propose ownership of the systems by a private sector bidder will not be disqualified. So the question is like, why is this necessary? What are you doing this? Why are you including that language in here, given that you've just said that you have not changed your position, that the assets must remain publicly owned? So the decision to resolve this litigation by including that language is going to help us avoid legal challenges at the time of plan confirmation. What we want to do is we want to avoid a situation, a legal objection at the time of plan confirmation where the retirees or some bondholders or somebody else argues that this whole process was technically flawed because it didn't allow for private companies to submit whatever bid they wanted to submit. And we want to avoid that. We view it as a technicality that we want to avoid, and we want to protect the city from expensive litigation that's, again, based on technicalities that could delay concluding the bankruptcy process. Now, what does this mean for Chester? We want to be clear that the receiver, I am not going back on my word to keep the water assets publicly owned. But we expect our critics, I expect CWA, to falsely claim that we now want to privatize the water assets, which again is not true. In terms of the facts, and again, I want to be very clear and look all of you in the eye when I say this. I, as the receiver, have the ultimate say in any agreement to monetize the city's water assets, subject, of course, to the bankruptcy court's approval. If I or if Michael Dowery had wanted to privatize the water authority, then we would have accepted Aqua's previous asset purchase agreement to buy CWA back in 2021. And in fact, we prevented the city from signing that agreement. We continue to support an RFP process that keeps CWA publicly owned. And like everybody, we're waiting for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision on the question of who owns CWA. We're going to remain transparent in our actions. We're going to be clear about what we're doing, why we're doing it. But I think it's important, again, particularly with this language, to make sure you understand why. Again, it is to avoid litigation down the road. And we think we've taken that issue now off the table. So again, we welcome your comments. We welcome the public to reach out to us at info@chesterreceivership.com. Again, wanted to provide all of this information to you all here. Again, being transparent about what we're doing and why we're doing. So I have that concludes the presentation that I wanted to make to the committee as well as to the public, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee or any of you all may have.
I have
All
a
right.
question, Mr. Receiver.
All right, thank you all. Thank you.
Something that you mentioned in regards to the Supreme Court ruling, not finding if the CWA actually belongs to the city of Chester or not. Do you have any insight on what that might mean for residents, depending on what that decision outcome might be?
Yeah, good question, Councilman. I don't. It'll all depend really on the court's decision, and how they may rule. I have sort of no real insight in terms of kind of what the ultimate thing is. What I will say, again, from the perspective of monetization, that I've said before is the city of Chester needs to monetize these assets. This is something that any other community in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has the right to do, except Chester, because of what was done in 2012. I just want to be clear, every other community in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania who incorporated an authority would have the ability to monetize its assets, except the city of Chester, because of what was done to it in 2012. And again, this kind of goes back to some of the statements that were made earlier, right? So if you're sitting here as a Chester resident, right, and I'm not going to put anyone on the spot here, but if you're sitting here as a Chester resident, so to think about this, not only have you had your authority taken from you, right, which is insulting in and of itself, right? I mean, just to begin with, everybody else in the Commonwealth can do this. Not only did that happen to you, right? You didn't do that. You didn't agree to it. City council didn't agree to it. City council didn't ask for it, right? But now you're being blamed when you are trying to monetize that asset in order to help your city survive. You're being blamed, and the same communities that actually benefited from all this, The same people who did are now insulting you, right, and calling you corrupt. And it's just it's unacceptable. It's completely and totally unacceptable. But that's where we are. That's where we are right now. So, Councilman, to your question, not sure what the court's going to do, not sure when they're going to do it, but all of us are eagerly awaiting that decision.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? All right. Well, given that, appreciate everyone's time. Our next MFRAC will be October 28th. I hope everybody wish everybody the best in the next couple of weeks. And I know there'll be a lot more information coming down the pike in the next couple of weeks. And again, we hope we do get some more information in all seriousness from the CWA here in terms of the justification for the rates, because what's been provided so far is not substantive. It's purely political. So look forward to seeing everybody on the 28th. Take care, all.